Hi, Josie Lewis here. This morning I had posted some stuff on Instagram about failure, and I got a lot of really great responses from some of the people that follow me over there. Petrified Rainbow, if you're interested. I'm going to read you some of the responses about failure. Cat H21 says, failing is how we learn. Without failure, we can't really appreciate our successes. I would love to see your failed attempt. Well, Cat H21, I've got some failures to show you today. Art by Rolly G says, absolutely true, you need to fail in order to learn. Another one says, quotes Thomas Edison, so big props to L. Bell Bootkin. L. Bell, right on. Thomas Edison says, I have not failed. I have just found 10,000 ways that don't work. Brilliant. Okay. Two Girls Stuff says, you can't learn from your mistakes if you never make any. Kim's Got Soul says, very curious about the description of failure as it applies to your Petris. Kim's Got Soul. Well, I got failed Petris. Okay, so I'm going to show you my very first Petri. Hold on, here it is. This was the silicone lid thing that I had for a hexagon mold I was using. I had some extra resin and I poured it in there and then just threw some ink in the lid randomly, and then the next morning discovered all these cool shapes. So then I thought I was onto something and I was off to the races. I probably made, 2,000 or 3,000 of these. Like, I got really excited about it. Possibly a little obsessed. This is another one of the early ones. As you can see, it's pretty thin. I was just doing like the tiniest bit because I didn't really know what I was doing. This one is another early one. Then, since then, I've had any number of terrible failures, like this one. Awful. This one? Are you kidding me? We've got this crazy thing. I don't know, there's certain things that are okay, but like the ink didn't come down as much as I wanted it. Mainly it seems like either not enough ink comes, like this, or too much ink comes, like this. Those are usually the accidents or the issues that show up. This one, the colors are cool, the ink didn't come. This one, crazy ugly. I've never really calculated my fail rate, but I would say 20%, maybe 30%, a lot. I have a lot of failures. And even now, even though I've made so many, it's in some ways it's a super easy thing to learn, and in other ways it's really easy to monkey it all up, and then it doesn't work at all. And the thing about that, though, moving away from the Petris for 1 second, is that my life as an artist is absolutely 100% reliant on failure. I was thinking, the other day about how many things I've applied to, how many grants I've applied for in my career. And, I would say I have about a 5% acceptance rate, maybe 10, probably closer to 5. If you look at my resume, which is like 3 or 4 pages long, and things like shows and honors and grants and commissions and different things like that, I have another 95 pages of things I didn't get. And the great thing about failing a lot is that you get really used to it. It doesn't hurt as much if you are used to it. If you're used to rejection, it's like, oh, well, there's another sign that I tried something. And I can honestly say, it's not like I love getting rejections, but I can honestly say that it doesn't like kill me, the way it used to. One of the things that I'd like to add in talking about failure is around our brains. We all have a prefrontal cortex right up front here. Prefrontal cortex is very important for like human skills such as thinking and self-awareness and complex reasoning and planning and complicated judgments, all of those things. If we have a head injury and we damage our prefrontal cortex, we don't function very well. There's some real problems. However, and this I think is fascinating and important to think about, especially as an artist, is that when somebody is in deep practice, often like a creative endeavor, sometimes athletic, there's lots of different ways to get into this state of flow where you're really concentrating on something you're working on. When people are in that state, the prefrontal cortex goes dark. Other parts of the brain are lighting up and doing things. But the prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain that's in charge of judgment and reasoning, is quiet, which frankly is a real relief. I really like it when the prefrontal cortex is quiet, because I do not like that, ongoing, critical, picky, fearful, ego-driven byline that I have in ticker tape, all the time. Most of the activities that I do, except when I'm making art, the ticker tape stops. Another thing about our prefrontal cortex is that it's extremely conservative. It does not like taking risks. It really does not like failure. So if you're trying to make art and your prefrontal cortex is alive and well, what you're going to find is that you're not willing to take risks, you're not comfortable with failure, and you're not comfortable trying things out that might not work. The prefrontal cortex has a direct line to your amygdala, which is your fight or flight response. Your prefrontal cortex is like, hey, we're not getting voted off the island, you guys. Let's blend in, let's conform, let's do what the other people are doing. Let's not question any norms here. Let's just keep it calm, keep it cool, look good, make sure everybody thinks you're awesome, right? That's what the prefrontal cortex is trying to do all the time. Artists need to break free from the prefrontal cortex, and the way we do that is by getting into flow. And then failures happen, but the prefrontal cortex is quiet because we're in flow. So then the failures happen and it's like, that didn't work. Let me try something else. Okay, well, thank you for listening to my Petri story. You can follow me on Instagram at Petrified Rainbow or Josie Lewis Art. And of course, I would always appreciate a subscribe on YouTube. And